It's easy to forget just how exciting CSI was back in 2000. At the turn of the millennium, the police procedural was nothing new, and viewers were surely fatigued with the usual cop show cliches. By focusing on the crime scene investigators rather than the gun-toting police detectives, creator Anthony E. Zuiker and executive producer Jerry Bruckheimer would give the crime drama a new lease on life. The phenomenally popular show combined a forensic focus with ultra-slick photography and cutting-edge effects to create a thoroughly commercial formula that still holds strong after 25 years. Critics and audiences would become just as tired with CSI over the course of its 15 seasons, multiple spin-offs, and countless imitators. But the early years still carry a hefty pop cultural punch. CSI was certainly aware of its predecessors.
Blunt force trauma case, Bermuda Hills Country Club.
In particular, Michael Mann's Manhunter. Its influence on the glossy production was clear, not merely due to the star William Petersen. The shots of Will Graham navigating murder scenes with a flashlight or overseeing painstaking lab work now seem prophetic. The comparison is even rammed home by the casting of Manhunter's villain, Tom Noonan, in Season 3. Set in Las Vegas, Nevada, in America's second busiest crime lab, the first being Quantico, CSI's pilot introduces us to the implausibly sexy team of investigators.
Room service.
There's head honcho and bug expert Gil Grissom.
Pin you against a wall?
Blood spatter analyst Catherine Willows, audiovisual specialist Warwick Brown, hair and fiber authority Nick Stokes, materials and elements consultant Sarah Seidel, and homicide detective Jim Brass. Together they take down the worst of Las Vegas's criminal element, from the seedy hotels and casinos to the quiet and rarely photographed neighborhoods.
It's gonna be a long shift when you get the call to respond to a command post.
Yeah.
Occasionally the drama of their personal lives would bubble up to the surface.
I'm fulfilling her dreams, not mine.
But never at the expense of the cases. Grissom would entangle himself with a dominatrix.
Would you prefer individual sessions, or would you like to enjoy each other's submission?
Catherine's father, Sam Braun, was a casino owner with mob ties, and Warwick had a gambling addiction. Fans tuned in week after week in their millions, and the series was an instant hit for CBS. One of those fans, unsurprisingly, was Quentin Tarantino, who was drawn to the show's mix of violent plots and tech-heavy science. In an interview with the Los Angeles Times, he even referred to Grissom as the greatest TV detective since Columbo.
Oh, listen, just one more thing.
You know you're an audacious fellow.
Tarantino caught up with the series during his downtime on the set of Kill Bill Volume 2, and it was clearly love at first sight.
Great job, guys. Okay, we got this one.
By the time the 5th season rolled around, he found himself in contention to direct an episode. It wasn't as crazy as it sounds now. 10 years prior, Quentin had helmed an episode of the medical drama ER.
What we got, Peter?
An installment noted for its bravura 2-minute tracking shot. His CSI would be more of a challenge. Acting as the season 5 finale, the aptly titled Grave Danger was a ratings hit in 2005. It also bore an uncanny resemblance to a subplot in Tarantino's latest film. The episode begins like 100 others before it. Nick Stokes arrives at a crime scene in a sequence very clearly shot on location. Unsurprisingly, the bulk of CSI was actually filmed in Los Angeles. However, there is no body. A uniformed officer leads Nick to a set of intestines coiled up neatly on the ground. When the officer rushes off to be sick, Nick wanders down the alley and spots a styrofoam coffee cup in a zip-locked evidence bag. As he crouches down to photograph it, he is attacked from behind and chloroformed. As would be typical with Tarantino's non-linear narratives, we then flash back to earlier in the evening. We get to see Grissom investigating a nasty double homicide. The inserts of a black glove killer are surely a reference to the work of Dario Argento. With a story credited to Tarantino, writers Zuiker, Carol Mendelsohn, and Naren Shankar clearly did everything in their power to appeal to fans of the filmmaker. In the first 10 minutes alone, we see lab techs Greg Sanders and David Hodges playing the Dukes of Hazzard board game.
Actually, I don't know how many board games I have right now because I haven't counted them. They need to be organized right now. They're kind of all over the house. I collect board games. For people who don't know what he's talking about, what Chris is talking about is I collect board games that have to do with movies and TV shows. I just like collecting collectible stuff, culture stuff of my culture.
We all do, yeah.
Nick and Warwick having a very Pulp Fiction-esque locker room chat, and Grissom geeking out over TV cowboy Roy Rogers. It isn't long before we cut back to the present. An unseen figure places Nick in a plexiglass coffin, complete with his sidearm, a set of glow sticks, and a dictaphone. He is then buried. This is of course reminiscent of what happened to the bride in Kill Bill. Unluckily for Nick, he won't be able to punch his way out. A further influence may have been the real-life 1968 kidnapping of Barbara Jane Mackle, who had been placed in a specialized coffin for ransom, an event also referenced in Dirty Harry.
Where's the girl?
I have the right.
A package is delivered to the lab demanding $1 million in 12 hours, or the CSI dies. This sinister message is accompanied by a mocking tape of Outside Chance by the Turtles, allowing the director to indulge in his love of old rock music. In a cruel gesture, the kidnapper has allowed the team to watch Nick in his coffin, although every time they click the video link, it cuts off his air supply. With no options and a departmental policy never to deal with terrorists, Catherine visits her father for the ransom money. Finding him at one of his casinos, Tarantino takes the opportunity to include a couple big-name cameos. The one and only Tony Curtis, and the Riddler himself, Frank Gorshin. This would become Gorshin's final performance, and Grave Danger was dedicated to his memory. Money in hand, Grissom goes, alone to the drop-off point. There he is greeted by the kidnapper, Walter Gordon, played by horror and B-movie legend John Saxon. Gordon soon reveals that money isn't his motivator, opening his jacket to reveal a belt of Semtex. As Grissom backs away, Gordon pushes the detonator and blows himself to bits. Perhaps unsurprisingly, this episode was delayed a week in the UK, when it was due to air a mere 5 days after the 7/7 bombings. With their lead suspect in pieces, Part 2 is a race to find Nick before his air supply runs out. Tarantino handles this ticking clock intensity perfectly, aided by a committed performance from George Eads, who conveys Nick's torments wonderfully. Because CSI was a show more concerned with crime solving than drama, the cast rarely got a chance to flex their chops. And all of them showed their acting muscle in Grave Danger. The director clearly pushed the very capable production team to its limits, using the most instances of CGI in his long career. The effects on the series as a whole still stand up to scrutiny, and Tarantino never runs out of creative ways to film a man in a box. There are plenty of Tarantino touches along the way, from tipping his hat to pals Edgar Wright and Eli Roth, to a late-in-the-game hallucination from Stokes that is outright black comedy. This digression drew plenty of criticism, but it only helps to make the episode quintessentially Quentin. The last act might have been a high point of CSI's 15-year run, building to a typically explosive resolution that earned Tarantino an Emmy nomination for Outstanding Direction. It's an absolute clinic in how to build and pay off suspense. 20 years later, we can see that Grave Danger was both a good and bad omen for CSI. It provided a feature-length story that is rightfully included in many lists in the best TV episodes of all time. But it also started a tradition of putting its leads in peril. Such examples include the shooting of Brass,
Jim!
the murder of Warwick, and the kidnapping of Sarah by the miniature killer. You could argue that the writing team was chasing the highs of Grave Danger for the remainder of the show's run, signified by an abundance of car chases, and even a wild bullet time sequence that has to be seen to be believed. Audiences stuck with it through thick and thin, even when Petersen left to hand it over to new leads.
D.B. Russell, new guy.
Today, many scoff at the franchise for being overexposed and overtired, and even an attempt to revive it with CSI Vegas would falter. But the first 5 seasons of Crime Scene Investigation remain some of the best procedural TV ever produced.